Before we do Raptor stuff, how was your Wembanyama experience? What'd you think of your first impressions of seeing Wemby live?
Yeah, I mean, I went to the opener, like his game one, and
The bad one.
It was the bad one, and it was just kind of funny. It was actually perfect summer league in a sense of so much excitement. Everyone there is so excited about the NBA, so excited about all these things that normal people aren't excited about, and they're all in one place. Like if you're a hardcore NBA fan, it's a cool thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
It's it's the equivalent of spring training for baseball, I guess, right? Like it's just like a rational person wouldn't enjoy seeing some person you're never going to see again, but you're not rational. That's why you're there and you're loving it. But so anyway, all that energy in the building, and it was in Thomas Mack, sold out, as everyone knows, and he was, he had a couple of little moments early, a couple of nice little passes and stuff, but then he sat after about 6 minutes and the place was dead. So it's just this incredible contrast of, just this, everyone just wanted to see something off of the script, which he didn't really deliver, certainly in that game. And then the moments he wasn't on the floor, it was like, okay, there's nothing going on here. Why am I here? So it was kind of, it was summer league at its finest, I guess.
Yeah.
But I think, as a player, I mean, I'm of the opinion he can't fail. Right, like it's just a matter of how well he'll succeed. He's just like he's going to block 4 shots a game, like he just will. So that's your base, and it looks to me like he's a very intelligent player who's not likely to kind of really force things in a bad way. So I think he'll be fine offensively, and then really it's going to come down to, like, can he be a really, really good NBA shooter? And if he can do that, then he'll be, then all these projections will make a ton of sense. If he's just like a pretty average NBA shooter, he'll be a really good player because I think defensively he'll be amazingly impactful. But, like we've seen this before, right? Like a 7-footer who can shoot is different than being a 7-footer who can really shoot. And, there is this slim possibility where he just ends up being a very average shooting 2-guard, right? Who happens to be 7 feet. And that doesn't really help anyone that much.
But that's what you think he's going to be as a guard, because it's just like, the watching him play, and when they throw it down to him in the post, you go, oh, right, you're 7. He's not a 7-footer, right? He's 7'4" or 7'5". Like he towers over Rudy Gobert, for God's sakes. And when they were pitching him some of them down low, and you go, okay, yeah, that looks good. That looks free and easy. Problem is, where I think that he has the bust potential, and everybody else is not exactly, big take here, but the physicality of him playing down low, it feels like he's just going to take such a beating. I don't know how he's going to be able to last, because he's just such a freakishly stick-looking figure.
Yeah, I don't worry about that so much. I mean, there's been skinny guys who've done well in basketball forever, right? Like you get hit, you crumple, they call a foul. Like it's not hockey. Nobody's trying to break you in half. The injury concern I would have or do have is when you are down around the basket and guys are flying around and trying to block your shot, or you're trying to block their shot, and just getting
stepping on feet,
just someone rolling up on his leg. That's it. That's simple as that. Is someone rolls up on somebody's leg and they're 6'9", scary enough, but the physics of it are such that maybe he doesn't get hurt, but your leg's another foot longer. There's a lot of surface area in which you can roll up on and end up hurting your knee. So that's it. Like that's the one I just look at. I go, how is this guy going to avoid the fluke of some really big dude just crumpling his leg? And that's why I worry about that more with him than someone who's 6'11". I don't know. It doesn't make much sense, but it just looks like it'd be more catastrophic.
I will say that after this first week of Wemby, he must be thanking God, he's playing for San Antonio and not in some crazy media market after like his first headline is security guard slaps Britney Spears. And then he has this crazy summer league where everyone's overreacting to game one. And you're even seeing, was this guy overhyped takes to the swing for the number 2? And then San Antonio shutting him down and him going, yeah, I think I'm going to go away from the media for a month. I go, that makes a lot of sense, actually. That seems like a thing that you should absolutely do, Wembanyama. Okay, so the piece that you wrote that's up on sportsnet.ca right now, it's good. Again, you've been on top of a lot lately. You were the guy that broke the stuff about the chemistry issues between the older guys and the younger guys on the team. And I do want to dive into that a little bit because, yeah, Fred VanVleet confirmed it on a podcast. I was talking about it yesterday. But, you reference in the piece that Siakam's not at Summer League. And I went, yeah, that's a little strange. That is a little weird. You outline kind of what that deal is. And I guess you can sort of explain that for context when we're discussing this. But to me, I went, this is even bigger than just him not being there. Like, if Scotty Barnes isn't there too, that also feels strange to me. As a guy who is supposed to be, taking some of the reins of this team, only Chris Boucher was sitting on Raptors row amongst their players. Like, if you are a fan of Summer League, if you do watch this stuff, there's quite a few players that end up going to this thing. They do enjoy Vegas. For a team that's been so good at shutting down drama and not having, stuff come out or seem like there's too much behind the scenes, it feels like a lot of leaks all of a sudden happening with the Raptors. Things are starting to get a little bit more public.
Well, that wasn't a leak. Like, that's just,
I guess the drama just getting more public.
And I should emphasize, Scotty Barnes was there on Friday. So Friday night, the opener of Summer League, everybody was there. I think everyone on the team was there except Siakam, Gary Trent, Thad. I think that's it. Maybe I might be missing a game. But so they had a really good turnout. And for context, right, is the Raptors, I'm pretty sure they're the only team in the NBA that has built a practice facility in a ballroom. They've done the Tampa in the ballroom at the Wynn Hotel. So everyone else, in previous years, everyone else, they have to secure a gym at a local college or high school. They got to get on a bus. They got to go. And so, it's for mildly inconvenient, I guess. And so they built at considerable expense when you think about renting a hotel ballroom for 2 weeks in Vegas. Built this facility out, and it was to be more convenient, get more work done with their young players, but also to make it really enticing for their established players to come, spend some time with the young guys, get their work in, just have that kind of environment where it's low stakes, but everyone's kind of building their relationships, so to speak. So that's all the background. And on Friday, everyone was at the game. Saturday, I was at the Raptors practice. All the vets were there working out after. It was good. And then Sunday, it was a 12:30 start, which I guess by Vegas starts in circumstances is early. And, nobody showed up. It was Chris Boucher. And I thought that was weird. Not that big a deal. Not the end of the world. But, Cleveland had all their guys there. And, Larry Tannenbaum was there. And, Wayne Embry was there. The guy's 86 years old. He made the effort to be there. And so I just thought it was a kind of an odd look. So I noted it. And then the bigger context is Pascal Siakam not being there at all is, I think, telling. I think it's not something you wouldn't notice. And just given the conversation that's going on.
Well, this is especially, Fred's out there publicly talking about the report, right? He's saying, I'm paraphrasing him a little bit here, but he said, for whatever reason it didn't click, and then he said he didn't want to really go into it, but that, the chemistry with the older guys and the younger guys, it wasn't really happening. And all I can think off of that is, well, now Fred's gone. Like, he would have been a primary ally of Siakam's in all of this. And even when I read your report and I look at this thing, I go, all right, I know that OG's a young player, but he's still a vet that's been around that team for a while. And maybe we throw Gary Trent Jr. in that mix, but you look at the Raptors roster from last season, and it's like, it's not a ton of young guys. It's one young guy. How much of this is just the Raptors vets didn't get along with Scotty Barnes?
I can't drill too deeply on that, to be honest. I think it was... Scotty's the one who kind of gets, it's set up that way. But do I know who specifically or when specifically people were upset with who and for what? I don't know. But I think if there was a better chemistry between Scotty and Fred and some of the vets, then maybe we wouldn't be hearing about this kind of stuff. But I don't think it was only Scotty and I don't even know who it reflects well or badly or neutral on, really. But I mean, it just is a fact that it happened. I think it affected the team to an extent, and I think that in terms of dynamics, right? Like you have Fred and Pascal are two guys who became stars, all NBA players from nothing, right? Like, and they had to spend most of the season in the G League. They had to come off the bench. They had to, they really had to kind of climb their way up and earn what they have achieved. And then you have a fairly good segment of that team that hasn't really had to do that. OG Anunoby's never had to play in the G League. Gary Trent Jr., well, he has to an extent, but certainly Scotty hasn't. He kind of go down the list. So I think that's maybe, if I were to sort of interpret it, it's a little bit of that. It's like guys who really were given very little chance to be successful NBA players turn themselves into exceptional NBA players, kind of looking around at some guys who haven't had to go through that and maybe have had every opportunity afforded them, and kind of going, what the hell? You know what I mean? Like, why aren't you paying dues the way we had to pay dues? And I think that's more of what was going on than anything else.
I think that's really relatable across just about any industry you work in, right? If you work your ass off to get somewhere and then you see something, and I don't want to say handed, because obviously these guys made the NBA, right? You don't just go to the NBA because someone's your brother or someone's your dad. They're not like, you're starting for the Raptors tomorrow. He's like, I really haven't played that much basketball. So obviously it's different in that extent. These guys have to work hard. They have to stay in shape, all that different stuff. But yeah, you could definitely see how guys like Van Vliet and Siakam, who have had such a path like that, would see guys who do have a little bit of that entitlement early on. And we've heard this about, like, I think Damian Lillard was talking about this on a podcast a lot with the younger generation of players in the NBA now, just in general. And yeah, whatever, generalizations can be pretty unfair, but about, how guys step in and they feel like it's their team right away. And I would feel like I did remember that quote from him as this stuff was coming out, and then also reflecting back on the year Barnes had. And you're right, it's probably unfair to put this all on him, and I'm sure it's not all him. It's just, like you think about, what was it, Malachi Flynn and his 30 games or 50 games that he played last year and 13 minutes a night? Was it Precious who wasn't around? Like, there's just not that many guys that you can sort of circle and say, hey, this would be the other guy. Anyway, the next step in this, though, is, okay, so Siakam's not there, but he does have the I want to be here through the agent report, right? I want to be a Raptor. I want to re-sign here. He tried to kind of block a trade. So it can't be that bad. Like, it has to be decent. But is your understanding that since then it maybe has gotten a little bit worse, that things have shifted potentially from his camp?
No, I don't think it's from his camp. I mean, I think Siakam loves Toronto. I think he wants to sign in Toronto. I think he wants to play in Toronto. And I think, if I were to read between the lines, I don't have to read between the lines. He hasn't got a contract extension yet. And his name has been, I think, like, nobody's corrected me on this. And I don't think anyone's sort of tried to pretend this isn't happening. He's been a guy that, is he being shopped or who knows the dynamics? But he is being a guy, I think, around the NBA is known to be available for the right offer. And doesn't mean he's going to get traded, but, if you put yourself in his shoes, he's coming off a career year. The year before, he's been All-NBA twice in 4 years. He was an All-Star in last year. He's had statistically his best year. He's a good, he's not a problem. Like, he's the furthest thing from that. And so, and he wants to be here. And yet, nobody wants to give him the money right away, at least. And so I think, not to put too fine a point on it, I'm sure he's not feeling great. I'm sure he's like, why would you want to come and be, sitting courtside with the camera on you all the time, trying to convince yourself to be super enthusiastic about, these guys who, frankly, there's probably only one of these guys you're ever going to play with. When organizationally, they're at least interested in finding out what would happen if they traded you. Mm-hmm. And I think it's just kind of human nature. He's like, you know what, I'll stick around. I'm going to stay at home, and if you get traded, I get traded, and then otherwise, hopefully you sign me. I'll see you in training camp. I think that's pretty much it.
Yeah, I don't blame him at all. I don't want to say it would be weirder if he was there, but no, I completely relate to his situation. He's seeing guys all over the NBA get $200 million who have accomplished less than he has. Like, he's a champion. He's also made All-NBA. He has been loyal to an organization that has had a history of star players not being loyal to them. And yeah, he's sitting there without an extension and seeing his name in rumors after a season that didn't go very well and his number one ally on the team signing somewhere else. Like, I completely understand his position. I just feel like, given all of those things that we're talking about, that it's hard not to imagine the relationship deteriorating to a certain degree. That this is not, like, how does this recover? How does this thing change short of the Raptors going, yeah, you know what, fine, we're going to pay you?
Yeah, I mean, that's what I've been kind of wondering about. It's like, how do you put the toothpaste back in the tube?
Right.
And the reality of it is, JD, is the way the relationship gets mended is they give him $192 million.
Yeah, that's it. That's the only thing. But they don't want to do that, obviously. So if they do that, they're bucking what they want the direction is.
They're hesitant to do it, and who knows? Maybe they will. Maybe they only give him 3 years, right? Maybe they give him 3 years, and maybe that's something. And the reality is, in pro sports and in the NBA, like, we're accustomed to paying attention to most of the people who get to dictate exactly their terms, player empowerment, blah, blah, blah. Well, player empowerment works for about 6 guys in the league, right? And a lot of other guys have to be humbled. Now, I would be very happy to be humbled if someone only wanted to be 3 years, 120. I'd be okay. I'll turn the other cheek. But it's still a fact of, you don't necessarily feel like you're getting what you deserve, or certainly be treated the way you could arguably deserve to be treated. And so, you just either got to suck it up and go, well, I'm going to, in the end, I just still got to go to work and I'm going to do it. And that's called being a pro. So that's one scenario. I think a more likely scenario is there is going to be a trade. And I hate to say, I'm hesitant to say, yeah, he's going to get traded, because then he doesn't. I look stupid. Mm-hmm. But, if I were, I would sort of think it's a 60-40, 70-30 thing. And, we should, I don't think it's going to drag out for months and months. We should find out. We'll see. But I mean, it's going to be awkward, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's going to be up to Masai, Bobby. It puts Darko into a tough situation as a head coach.
Yep.
So it's going to be a little awkward until something gets resolved.
It's already so awkward. And again, it's still so awkward too, because you're looking back at all of the moves that were made or the moves that weren't made, and you're thinking, all right, this is a team that now doesn't own their first-round pick next year, that's entertaining the idea of trading their best player, who just re-signed Jakob Poeltl to a $20 million deal. And I know he's not an ancient player, and that they still do want to remain competitive. That's part of Masai's philosophy at this point. But yeah, Fred leaving for nothing, and then you standing firm on these extremely high prices for your stars. And again, I think that too much gets made of that a little bit at times with some of the quotes, because yeah, of course you want your general manager or your president to hold firm on prices. But it would be especially strange now if it got to the point where this thing does get so awkward, where all of a sudden that price dips a little bit and you look at a return for Pascal Siakam that is not overwhelming. And I wonder, the optics of that, after everything that's happened in this last year and a half, it would just, I don't know what happens.
Yeah, and I would say it's kind of unlikely you're going to get an overwhelming return, right? Because, that market that kind of peaked with the Rudy Gobert, Donovan Mitchell trades last year, DeJounte Murray, like those guys, that was kind of the peak of we'll throw all the picks and give you the players, and we just want to get the star. Mm-hmm. it hasn't worked all that well, and there's a huge repercussions when it doesn't work that well. So I think that and the new CBA has really kind of cooled that opportunity for not just Siakam but for any player.
Yeah.
And so I think you're going to get a good return. You're going to get probably a pick or two, and you're probably going to get one really good player, and hopefully a really really good prospect. But it's not going to be a king's ransom where you're like the Utah Jazz. You've completely revamped your team with one deal, you know what I mean, or two, I guess.
Yeah.
So I think just get prepared for that, and it's got to be viewed in that context.
Well, again, it's going to be especially difficult though to shift from that context, given that when we were doing these rumors at the deadline, it was, hey, this many picks for OG. And you go, well, Siakam's better than OG. He's older, but he's more accomplished. I would say you're closer to a championship trading for Pascal Siakam than you are OG Anunoby. And now it feels like, that price point is going to change a little bit, which is going to force people to go, well, why didn't you do this earlier? And just hard to recover from any of that. Anyway, last quick thing. And we'll end on just a little bit more of a positive. So this is, to me, the Summer League thing was hilarious in that we were overreacting to the 7'5" guy for one bad game, and then the 5'7", 6". How tall do you think Noel is?
He is, and you know what, Marquise Noel, I give him full credit.
Yeah.
He is 5'7", and he tells you he's 5'7".
Yeah, okay.
There's no I'm not.
He's not 5'6", and he's like, I'm 5'7", because I feel like that could. Okay,
I'd say for sure he's 5'7", and look, kind of an interesting player. We'll see. I just think it's going to be tough. I think the problem with a guy that size is just the geometry of trying to finish layups. It's so hard. You just have to pick the most extreme angles on the backboard to get the ball to go, and you like what could be like a 7 out of 10 chance for a 6'4" guard is like a 3 out of 10 chance for somebody else. But but he does a lot of really good things, and I think at the very least he'll be an really interesting player for 905. Maybe he'll get some NBA time. I think Grady Dick I liked him. I think he's he's just so young. Like, he's almost exactly the same age as my son. And so it's interesting through that prism is how mature he is and how smart he is and how polished he is. Like his EQ, IQ, I think, is really, really high. And that's a huge thing in this business. The NBA business, like, it's just so easy if you're not moored properly to kind of get your head spun around. I don't think that's going to be a problem for him. And then right now, physically, he's probably a couple of years away from being where he needs to be at his best as an NBA player. Just, it just takes a lot of time to train to get to that level physically. But he's got he's 6'8", but he's kind of got a low base. Like he's not one of these kind of super lanky, skinny guys. His lower half is actually pretty sturdy, and his IQ is very good. Is very evident as a basketball player. Like, he really knows what he's doing out there. So, presuming he shoots it the way he's supposed to be able to shoot it, I think his floor is very high.
Yeah.
That's the way I put it.
Yeah. No, I loved the pick, and leading into the draft, he was the guy that I really, really wanted to follow the Raptors, and we did a whole bunch of podcasts on him. But I personally loved watching him play. And there's going to be some things there that are going to be tough at the NBA level for sure, especially with the defensive stuff. But and I think ISO creating, finishing around the basket similarly to the Noel stuff. But no, I'm very excited about that pick. And I don't want to trash the tiny guy. Listen, as a fellow short king, I would like to say that I'm rooting extremely hard for this guy. It's just, he's shorter, notably shorter than Isaiah Thomas. Like, it's tough. It's tough to.
Yeah, and the thing with Isaiah Thomas is that guy's like a bowling ball, right?
Yeah,
like,
man.
He's like got that Kyle Lowry thing where he could just go through people, and he could really get his jumper off, and it was a pretty wet one. So Marquise, look. I'm not going to count out that guy. Like, he's to overcome more obstacles.
It is just a lot of hype. It was just a lot of hype. Like, they have him going around with Grady Dick, you know, like, these are the two Raptors prospects. And I went, this feels unfair to Marquise, that we're putting him up there with a guy who was a lottery pick. And I just don't think that we're going to look back on those and be like, wow, what a draft class. It's going to be like, they have a really good draft pick, and then a really good, potentially G League player who maybe plays a few minutes.